Disney is mistreating military families and military members, even veterans. And we're just finding that out of the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District audit. It's a big independent audit where they're looking at what Disney has been up to in Florida, and it is exposing the things that Disney usually does not want exposed. In particular, their treatment of people who have served in the military or are serving in the military, well, it's a real problem. What we're finding out is that apparently Disney did not want military members, their families, their loved ones, getting in close and comfortable with those ritzy people over there enjoying the Polynesian. I say that with kind of a smile on my face, but not because I'm laughing, but because it's just so ridiculous. The idea that military members shouldn't be able to cross the road and go to the Polynesian where they can have access to transportation, nice restaurants, and more. We're going to explain it all, folks. We're going to deliver you the receipts. It's not pretty, but it's right here, right now. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the place where we respect each and every one of you, no matter where you come from nor your background. It's because you're human and you deserve it, but the Walt Disney Company seems to not understand that, not one bit. Because if you are someone who has served in the military, serving in the military, or if you are a loved one of said person in the military, well, the Walt Disney Company has apparently decided that you're not good enough to cross the road and go to a nice hotel from the hotel that's dedicated to military members. It's something that people who have been in the military or who have been veterans have been allowed to do at Walt Disney World for decades. And yet, the Walt Disney Company, well, they nudged, they forced, they made a local government make decisions that were in not the best interest of family members and of military members. It is exceedingly sad that the company is in this place. It's time to deliver the receipts, though, folks. Let's talk about it. Let's show it to you, and you decide for yourselves what you think about Disney after you watch this one. It's another expose on the audit. Let's dive in right now. You're already seeing that this audit that came out of Central Florida displays that Disney has mistreated badly veterans and military families, and we're going to show that right now in high resolution. Here's what we've got. Hang on, folks. I'm going to have to read this a bit, so Professor Pro is going to join for just a bit. It's wordy, but we're going to get through it, and then you're going to have it explained. This is just depraved. Here's what we've got. The foregoing benefits cultivated, by the way, this is from page 47 of your text, ladies and gentlemen, out of CFTOD.pdf. The foregoing benefits cultivated the view among RCID, that's Reedy Creek Improvement District employees, that they were a valued part of the Disney Corporation. Indeed, they were the magic behind the magic, a popular RCID catchphrase. The existence of these benefits demonstrates that the RCID was captured by Disney, that being a local government, even though it was simultaneously charged with regulating Disney. In other words, the regulators were being regulated and benefited by Disney. That's also known as, well, some might say a bribe. I would never say that, of course, not on this channel.
The inmates were running the asylum.
Indeedly doodly. This captured relationship at a minimum creates a perception that the RCID was not neutral when Disney's interests happen to conflict with the interests of other RCID residents, taxpayers, non-Disney guests surrounding municipalities, the state of Florida, or members of the public generally. Oh boy, but who would those people be? Well, get ready. We're going to tell you. In Florida, it is the policy of the state that public officers and employees, state and local, are agents of the people and hold their positions for the benefit of the public. But time again, as outlined in this report, the RCID took action that benefited Disney at the expense of the public, the district, and other taxpayers within the district. Now let's tell you who was mistreated at the behest of Disney. Get ready. This is despicable. The RCID's treatment of veterans who served in the U.S. military is emblematic of this dynamic. And I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that we brought this, I think we were the first to bring this to the public eye.
Yes.
It's not, I don't say that to be braggadocious. I say that because it needed to be brought to the public eye, and we're happy that it's being addressed. For example, when Disney's interests conflicted with the interests of guests at the non-Disney Shades of Green Resort, and by that what we mean is that this was a resort, or is a resort, that is on the Walt Disney World property, but it is not maintained by Disney. It is maintained by the federal government, particularly the armed forces, operated by the U.S. military for the benefit of service members. Disney achieved its preferred outcome with the RCID's cooperation. Now, what was that outcome? The outcome was to blockade veterans and military members such that they could not access the transportation that they had enjoyed for decades, because they did not want military and veteran families getting on that monorail with those people at the Polynesian. That just could not do. You can't have those groups mixing. Let's read it. This conflict arose as part of the ongoing World Drive Phase 3 project. The World Drive Phase 3 project is relocating a portion of World Drive, one of the public roads that guests use to navigate within the district. The public roadway changes fall under RCID's jurisdiction and are being funded by the RCID bonds. Note that at this location, that doesn't mean that the road was moving places. It just means that it was being widened. And it has been sitting there not being widened for a very long time. So none of this should have had an impact on military and family members, and veteran family members. The World Drive Phase 3 roadway project affects the entrance to the Shades of Green Resort. Shades of Green is located across the street from Disney Polynesian Village Resort. The Polynesian Village Resort is home to dining and shopping experiences, access to the Disney monorail transportation system, access to a Disney boat service that brings guests to the Magic Kingdom theme park, and access to walking trails that allow members of the public to walk to the Magic Kingdom theme park. Members of the public do not need a ticket to ride the monorail or boat service, nor do they need to be a Disney hotel guest. Disney affirmatively informs park guests not staying at Disney resorts that they can freely use the monorail, boat, and other forms of Disney transportation. Before the World Drive Phase 3 project, guests at Shades of Green, again, remember this specifically for military, families, veterans, etc., sometimes walked across the street or used scooters if they were disabled to access transportation and public amenities at Disney's Polynesian Village Resort. As part of the World Drive Phase 3 project, Disney leadership determined that Disney's preferred direction is to eliminate all pedestrian activity generated by the Shades of Green Resort, which will be accomplished by mandating guest usage of the shuttle, bus, and development of site modification to eliminate pedestrian activity altogether, because you can't have veterans and military members simply crossing the road and going and mixing in with their uber high-class, ultra-wealthy international demographics that they're reaching out to. At least initially, the RCID's concern was for the safety of pedestrian traffic, as the roadway was expanded from 2 to 4 lanes. Again, folks, that has not yet occurred. This is all theoretical. The RCID's position was that the location would need to be signalized for pedestrian traffic by adding a traffic signal where none existed at the time. I would suggest also, and we have suggested, and this has been sent to high levels in Florida, that an elevated pedestrian bridge would do just fine. RCID would only accept an unsignalized intersection at Shades of Green if there is either extensive fencing or a grade-separated pedestrian crossing to accommodate any pedestrians. This goes in a little farther in the weeds than we want to go to. But here's what we want to get to. As the project evolved, the RCID did not conduct a dedicated pedestrian study at the Shades of Green location, but did obtain data from another traffic study indicating that a peak of 30 pedestrian platoons or groups per hour were crossing between Shades of Green and the Polynesian Village Resort. What that means is that 30 families were crossing per hour, and I would suggest that's a bunch of malarkey. I think at peak times that is overwhelmingly too small a number.
And the whole idea of that platoon thing is how many people, when the light turns green, will use the crosswalk?
Okay, that's a great point, too.
Stop. They're bunching them in groups based on the average timing of crosswalks and signals.
Right, and so you could be talking about hundreds of people using this. Ultimately, the RCID acceded to Disney's wishes. In July 2022, Disney confirmed to the RCID that the pedestrian access situation across from Shades of Green, which they could not spell apparently, is to be completely omitted. In this circumstance, it is difficult to believe that Shades of Green's and the veterans' interest in pedestrian traffic to and from the resort was given equal consideration alongside Disney's preference for ending that pedestrian traffic, particularly because the RCID employees involved in the decision about this public roadway project were receiving complimentary ticket annual passes, substantial Disney discounts, and other perks reserved for Disney cast members. Yet as a government entity, the RCID was obligated to serve Shades of Green and Disney on equal footing with complete neutrality. This is just one example of how Disney's capture of the RCID appears to have affected the neutrality of the RCID's government decision-making and at the very least created the appearance of impropriety and unfairness, again, folks, towards our veterans, towards families of military members, and sometimes even of those who have lost loved ones in the active service. This is despicable, and this was Disney that wanted to do this. It's amazing to me. This is absolutely amazing to me. In fact, you can see right here, signal with a grade crosswalk. Disney doesn't want it. RCID to build a pedestrian bridge. Disney really doesn't want it. All pedestrian traffic from Shades of Green is eliminated. Disney likes it, but I have been told Shades does not want. What is Shades? Yeah. Shades is the federal government. There's another part to this, though, and Ron, I know that was a lot, but you're the kind of person you can handle all of that. The other part of this, Ron, is that we did an original expose here on the channel where we actually had a reporter go and video the walkway, which went all the way to that path. And Shades of Green wasn't really enforcing, preventing people from still using it because none of this construction in that area had yet been undertaken. So this is all theory still. And yet, officially was closed. After we did that expose where the signage from the federal government was up blocking people from using their sidewalk any longer, which means that the federal government ultimately was in bed with Disney on this decision, you would think. But after we did that, that's when they closed down that and really enforced, hey, nobody can use this. We're not going to look the other way while you cross the road. Ron, what's your thought on the capture of the RCID by Disney and the fact that they actually went after military families?
Well, I mean, is there some kind of, is this a political thing or an aesthetic quasi-political thing? In other words, they don't want veteran families because they're the, I mean, look,
if you want my honest opinion, Ron, now this is speculation. I think the military families likely do not have the financial needs, and it's probably visually evident that they're not of the same wealth status as those who are going to one of Disney's premier hotels, which is Polynesian.
I think that as well, 100%.
I understand why you might say that, but in 2023, I don't really know that rich people going to Disney look all that different from white trash going to Disney. I mean, nobody.
So I've seen some pretty rich people that look like white trash.
Ron, what would be your hypothesis then as to why Disney would want to eliminate the ability of military members and their families from simply walking across the road and accessing services they had enjoyed for 3 decades?
Well, so another question that I have is it veterans or is it active service members or a mixture?
Both. Yes.
So there's going to be a meaningful portion of people with short haircuts and maybe even uniforms or not so much uniforms.
Yes.
Maybe.
No, they'll be in uniform as well at times. Yes, absolutely.
So that, to me, I think more than the wealth thing, it's a political distaste for the veterans. They don't want people who are military looking. And let's face it, people are going to Disney aren't doing anything. They're not having political discussions. It's not like going to Twitter.
Right. But
people who look military, and whether they're active service or fairly recent veterans, or they're wearing, and they tend to be Trump supporters, and maybe they're going to wear red caps. This was a nasty, gratuitous lashing out at them because these resentful scumbag Marxists they hate everything that's good and virtuous.
Look at this, Ron, real quick.
And I wish it were something as mundane as a class consciousness based on wealth. I think it's entirely political.
Well, Ron, let me show you this. I just want to show everybody how simple.
An exclamation point on that while we're looking at the map. Just think about this. Remember we talked about how in the report it said we know that our political stuff may not agree with people and it's a risk and all that. Nobody anywhere in this company or at RCID, which is this company, said, okay, we all feel that way, but this is going to make us look bad. Maybe for purely commercial reasons and goodwill, we shouldn't do this. Nobody even suggested there was anything wrong. That's how totally polarized all the people at Disney are now.
So let me walk through this because this is, I want everybody to understand the full level of depravity here. So Shades of Green does not operate Disney World transportation like all the other resorts. It uses its own transportation, and it's not as nice and it's not as frequent as Disney transportation. So then what has been going on since the 90s is that family members would walk down this pathway and they would cross this road right here, and then they would go into the Polynesian and they would be able to access Disney transportation, including the monorail, which is right here, including ferries, etc. Now, this walkway crosses one lane, a median, and a second lane. This is still exactly as it is today. At least it was the last time I visited this. And all that exists are cones here, but it's all theory, right? This road, I believe you have to go up to this point, right, where it's still showing here, before you find additional lanes. And so down here, there's no reason They haven't even started the construction as far as I can tell. And yet it's all blocked off so that families cannot use this. They cannot access this. And so, wow. Ron, you're suggesting that it's even worse than what I had thought in my mind. I thought it was a class issue. You're suggesting that it comes from a disdain, in fact, for the people who serve in the military. And I think that's even worse.
Yeah, I think it's worse. And I'm quite confident that that's what it is. There's a real lashing out, people. The entire mentality of the cultural Marxism is resentment and envy. And, think about military people is, as much as people on the left like to mock them as, as robots and zombies, they're overwhelmingly people who have chosen what they want in life. They are disciplined. That, they have, I don't want to, there's a whole world of people, and the military, our U.S. military is gigantic, and there are all kinds of people, but this, it is highly political. But to go back really to your original point, regardless of what of any of us thinks of the motivation,
this is a government decision, Ron. This is a local government.
The excerpts from that report demonstrate that Disney made the decision. Disney made the decision, and there's nothing more than a veneer of procedural regularity, and it's even worse than if there had been none at all, because those parenthetical remarks, Disney doesn't want, Disney really doesn't want, that in a litigation context. Oh my God, if only I could get a piece of this action.
Ron, but is it okay? So we know it's despicable. Is it also is it illegal, or is it at least actionable if people wanted to take action against the RCID as it was constituted, or the board members, or Disney, or somebody, if a government was choosing to remove the services of veterans and their families in favor of a corporation's desires, with what I can't find a logistical reason. I can't find any good reason to do this outside of what we've come up with, either class or a disdain for the military, period.
And can they use like the easement law? Because, as an easement, usually, if it's been used for so many years, it could be considered an easement, couldn't it?
Mm. Oh, well, that's a very nice point. That is something that, you really would have to look at the documentation.
You have to look at the terms of the lease that they have with the government for the property.
Well, if
right, but doesn't an easement become like something once they
yes,
used
Fletcher.
it for a certain time?
Well, but again, what we might perceive as an easement can actually be a written license that has terms that include, this is entirely under, at our discretion, and it can be withdrawn at any time. But you would need to go into the facts for that. I'm going to be right back.
Okay. All right. Well, guys, let's go through thoughts that Ron provided with us right then. Who wants to take a swing at the idea that Disney is anti-U.S. military members?
As on the whole right now, absolutely, especially compared to what they used to be. The Walt Disney Company, obviously, they worked with the military in creating training films back in the day during World War II. Walt has entire attractions that there is no way that the Walt Disney Company would build an attraction like, say, the Hall of Presidents featuring the Commander-in-Chief. This is being in the military is in the protection and service of the flag and the country. And that makes Marxists very uncomfortable. The whole idea of be all that you can be, which hasn't been the slogan for years, but that is the exact opposite of the mentality of a leftist right now.
Right, and we're not taking a position in regards to wars or what should have been done in U.S. history. We're here to say that if you served, or if your family served, or if you've lost a loved one in the active service, if you're a veteran, you deserve to be respected for the sacrifices that you made. You don't make the decisions the U.S. government does, but we're appreciative of everybody who has served, and I think that's an official position of the channel itself. Well, I'm noting here, gentlemen, that the Walt Disney Company seems to have treated the Shindy group, and this is a chat. In fact, let me see if I can pull that up. It's not a super chat, but there, on occasion, somebody puts something in that's so poignant it just needs to be shown. Blood Cell 9 mentions the Shanghai resort. It seems to me that Shanghai and the citizens of China attending the Chinese parks are treated a little bit better than our military members who attend Shades of Green and just want to be able to cross the road. And that's really where this is despicable, is that there are no sidewalks. It is a public road. It was controlled by a local government, and said local government acquiesced to the mouse and said, no veteran, no military member, no little girl whose daddy passed away in service, and you're on a big Disney World trip to make you feel better, you will not cross our road.
And you know, there are particular legal protections at the federal level that prohibit discrimination against veterans. So that in and of itself is, even regardless of whether they acted pursuant to a contractual to a contractual agreement and they had the right to do so, it is nauseating.
It's a shame that there's not a bulldog lawyer out there somewhere.
Can I ask a question of everybody?
Please.
If they were building Epcot today, do you think the American Adventure would be made the way it is?
Oh, no
way.
No.
Because
I think they loathe those attractions as
my
they
dear
are.
departed dad, who was a Navy veteran of World War II, when I took my parents, because I said, you got to see this place, because of course they grew up with me with Disneyland, but they'd never been to Disney World. And when I took my father, who was a very down-to-earth guy and not a particularly religious or he didn't talk about those big issues. He just wasn't that kind of person. When I took him to see the American Adventure and we walked out of there, he looked at me and he said, that was a religious experience for me. And they've watered it down some over the years too, but it
used to be an absolutely patriotic, that Disney always wanted to position itself as every company did in those days, as a patriotic champion of the American way.
And they're fine with the Voices of Liberty as long as they're dressed in colonial outfits, and they're fine with fake drum and bugle corps in the parks as long as they're dressed in three-cornered hats. But modern, not so much.
Yep, very good point. Very good point.
It's funny to me how you don't hear about any of this in the news. Like if Trump was to do something like this at like Mar-a-Lago or some place of his, like it would be all over the place.
Yeah.
But you know,
you do know he got two scoops when everybody else got one scoop one time.
Yeah.
You do realize there was a news cycle dedicated to that.
They have their priorities. And of course, they are the corporate news, and one of those corporate news is ABC, owned by Disney.
Like I said before, the idea that they are so totally in their own bubble that they don't get the bad publicity and PR angle of this enough to say, okay, this is how we feel, but come on, guys, we're going to look like, they don't. It never enters their mind.
Yeah,
as we saw in those Chris Rufo videos of everybody. Well, I put all this stuff in, and I was encouraged to do it.
Right. Nobody stopped me.
Right. Of all the things that they want to put forward, these are the things that they ignore when they talk about how they want to look to the world.
All right, folks. Dismal Disney did not quite explain it fully, I guess, but now we're here. Hope you liked it. I didn't like it, but maybe you liked knowing, and that is, that's the thing. It's better to know than not to know, eh? So drop a like down below so others can know. Share, subscribe, and when you click it, you stick it to the algorithms. It's the notification bell. Drop a comment. Let us know your thoughts. Be polite, be kind, and remember that regardless of what we think about the U.S. government and what it may do with the military members themselves are totally, they deserve respect. How's that? They absolutely deserve respect, just as you do. And we give it here every day on the channel because, we're not Disney. So, folks, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.